host, MrEliMac, and today I have a very special guest with me, someone that I have always spoken to about wrestling. She's one of the few people that I actually want to talk wrestling about, and also she wants to start her own podcast, so I thought this would be a great way for her to get her feet a little wet in the podcast sphere. But before we actually get into who is joining us, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new wrestling podcast episode comes your way. Also, give this podcast a 5-star review on all the different podcast feeds. I would love to hear your thoughts on all that. So, with all that out of the way, please, ladies and gentlemen, help me introducing my guest. She is someone that I care about so deeply. Her name is Macy Early. Macy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so good, Elijah. How are you? It's gonna happen. I'm just gonna get your feet. I'm just getting everybody's feet wet.
I know, but people, my name is not Elijah. It's just yeah. Okay.
See, you're lying. You're coughing.
Look. Okay. Now look here. It's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna cough again. I could already felt it. But anyway, Macy, tell the people a little bit about your history with wrestling.
Oh yeah, let's dive in. So I kind of consider myself someone whose family is in the wrestling business. We're not obviously huge parts, but my granddad was a lot of the foundational core group in Memphis Classic Wrestling, which would honestly be like the Mid-South Wrestling conference that a lot of people came through. One of my granddad's best friends was Jerry the King Lawler. We love him. Shout out to the King. We love you. You're the best. But my granddad was a manager, a promoter. And so that kind of love that he had for wrestling just kind of expelled into my family and like expelled to me, obviously. And so that's why I have such a special place in my heart for the business, because it feels very like family oriented. Yeah, that's it. That's my history with wrestling. It's the family biz.
Now, before we get into talking about a topic, what was your favorite era in wrestling? Like, what would you say is the era that you go back to the most?
Oh, the Attitude Era. I'm wearing my Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt. Currently, it's the Austin 316. That's
Classic.
My favorite era. Yeah, it's that shirt. Love it. Love the Attitude Era, and I feel like we're not going to talk about it in this episode, but I feel like we're kind of coming into a resurgence of that era, just in the perspective of 2022.
Exactly. I also agree with you. A lot of stuff in WWE right now has been going really well ever since Triple H took over, but the sort of promotion that hasn't been doing very well, segue, is AEW, especially in the past months, maybe even year, depending on who you are. So that is what our topic is going to be. We're going to be talking about some of our mistakes, not our mistakes, but the mistakes that we have noticed in AEW and sort of what we believe are their top mistakes. We both have picked 5 particular topics, and we're just going to give them to you. We're going to do it as a roundtable discussion between Macy and myself. So Macy, since you are the guest, what is your first thing on the little docket? It doesn't have to be like your number one thing, but what is the first thing on your list of mistakes for AEW?
Yeah, let me preface my list. So my list is basically, I am someone who has stopped watching AEW in the past, I'd say 6 months. There was obviously a change for me that happened in the past 6 months that's made me stop viewing. And so this list gave me the opportunity to sit down and write and figure out, why do I not care about it anymore? Because I think that's what it comes down to. I don't care about AEW and what they're doing because they aren't giving me a reason to care. My list also, Elijah, is 6 points. So I was an overachiever, and I just wanted you to know that. So my preface for the list of why my list is because I stopped watching AEW 6 months ago for some reason. And I hadn't really thought about that reason of why I stopped watching. But I sat down
And I thought about it, and these are the reasons why I stopped watching. I think AEW just, like, I don't care anymore. And there's a reason why I don't care. And that's what my list is. I also have 6 points. So I was an overachiever. I think 6 points are plenty. So we'll start with my first one. Elijah, I think this is going to be controversial for you. I don't think you're going to love this one. My first... Are you still there? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just wanted to make sure that no background noise from my end could be heard.
Okay, I was like, where did everybody go? Sick. My first point. Elijah, get ready to cuss me out if you need to, because I know how you feel about titles and people having the chance at titles. But I think AEW has way too many freaking titles. I don't care when there's so many titles. I'm pretty sure there's like 11 titles right now. In fact, I pulled it up so I could justify myself. So let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there's 8 titles right now. Now 2 of them belong to women's. Okay. There's like 4 tag team. No, there's 2 tag team and then 4 single champions.
Are you including Ring of Honor?
Yes.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, I agree with this point.
No, you don't.
Look,
no way.
Look, I very much think that AEW also has too many titles. If it is one brand, if it is for one entire promotion, they have way too many titles. Now,
okay, yep. Now, I was just gonna say that's where I'm going with this.
I'm saying, like, for me personally, if they just had the AEW, the All Atlantic, the tag team, the trios, and the women's title, those 5, I would be fine with it. But yeah, continue. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, no, you're fine. I'm with you in the same facet that it's such a small promotion. Like, obviously, it's not a WWE show where they have Raw, SmackDown, NXT UK, all the other things they have. That makes sense to have lots of titles. And when we get to WWE in a later episode, I'm going to plug that right now. I will have things to say about having so many titles. But for this being what it is, and also their ratings sucking lately, they just keep going down and down. There's no reason. This isn't doing anyone any good at all. Also, I personally, this will be another point that I'll make later. The fact that there's 4 singles titles for men, 2 tag team for men, and you get 2 singles women's championships. What's going on? What's going on, Tony Khan?
Oh, I can already tell you that. It's honest. That little point goes into one of my points, but we'll wait until that. But yeah, like...
I think we will have the same point then.
Yeah. I just honestly think that AEW has too many titles. It's at first when they started introducing a little bit more, like a few titles, I was like, it's fine. It makes sense to have these titles. But then once they kept on going, and then they bought Ring of Honor, putting their titles on main TV as well, I was just thinking, there are just so many titles, and it sucks when you look at sort of your women's division, and when it came to all of the stories this past Full Gear, the stories that I cared about the least were the ones for the titles. Those are the ones I cared about the least. Those should be the ones I care about the most. I cared more about the Saraya Britt Baker storyline than I did the title matches.
Yep. I feel the exact same way.
Like, I shouldn't feel that way, and I think Tony Khan, for some reason, we're going to be bringing up his name a lot. Tony Khan, for some reason, just wants to be able to show, hey, look at all these titles we have. And I'm like, sure, WWE also has a lot of titles, but theirs is explainable. Yours isn't. It would make a little bit more sense if, like, Rampage was a second brand, but
it's not. It's an extension.
Exactly. So I agree. There are too many titles in AEW right now.
Wow. I'm so surprised we agreed on that. Because we've had our fair share of conversations about titles and, like, stipulations regarding titles in WWE. So I thought for sure we were going to disagree on this.
But again, that's the thing. Where WWE, when it comes to all of their titles, they make sense. Like, it makes sense because there are 3 separate brands right now, so it makes sense why there are so many titles. Whereas for AEW, it's just one promotion with like 500 offshoots. So that's why I very much think that AEW really hasn't been helping itself recently.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
All right, so that was Macy's first little selection. Macy, since you have 6, go ahead and say your next one. That way we can try to even out.
Okay, so this next one, it's not a big point. I need you to know that none of these are big specific points. These are just overarching reasons why I stopped watching. Got it? Okay, so the next one is that I think AEW, I think their roster is too big for what it is, for like the show that they have and the size show that they have. I think their roster is too big, and so people don't get a fair chance to showcase their talents. For a place like WWE where they're huge, it's a huge franchise, I get having a deep roster, but AEW does not need to have a deep roster at this moment. Currently, they have 189 people as of December 13th, as of today, on their roster. 189 people. And so I just don't think that's what they need right now. I think a lot of wrestlers who could go to Impact, could be somewhere else getting better experience, deserve that instead of sitting on the sidelines and sitting in the background of AEW.
Or being forced to work AEW Dark and Dark Elevation.
Yeah. There's just no need for that deep of a roster for the small promotion that they are at this moment.
Which I do think, and you know what? I'm just going to go to one of my points, because one of my points was bloated roster. Yeah, so exactly what you just said. Their roster is humongous right now. And I think, honestly, the reason why their roster is so big right now is because they're trying to wait until they could have gotten a Ring of Honor TV deal, which now they're going to do the Ring of Honor Club, which is going to be their TV thing, until some other thing. I can't remember what they said it was. But I think a lot of the people that can't get TV time on AEW are going to go over to Ring of Honor. But again, when you have that entire thing, if that's what you're waiting on, you should have done it a lot sooner. Like, literally the moment that ink was on the paper for the Ring of Honor stuff, you should have been ready with a TV deal, or like getting ready to do that streaming service. That way the people on your bloated roster can get ready to do something. They can just be there.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. It's just too much. And their roster, this is also another, like, one of my points later on, is that we had, like, the influx of, obviously, CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and Samoa Joe and other people that, in my opinion, like, I want to see those guys on TV and in the entertainment industry as much as possible. Because I think no matter what we think of them, I think they're great performers, and they're great entertainers. But you think about the people who are just getting thrown to the side, who need a chance to develop in this business but can't, because they're literally number 189 on that roster. Like, it's not fair.
I mean, I know Jungle Boy has been getting some spotlights, but imagine if all the names that you just said didn't come in. Jungle Boy would probably be close to the top of the card right now.
I definitely agree with you. And so, like, this is when I have to get out of my mindset where I'm selfish and, like, controversial, but I am a CM Punk stan, if you want to call it that. He was my favorite wrestler when he was at WWE. I waited a long time for him to come back to AEW, and that was exciting. That pop was exciting. But now I'm stepping back and I'm looking at AEW, and this is a point I'll make later, so I'm not going to jump to it completely yet. But I'm with you. If those guys hadn't come in, what talent would I be tuning in every night to see? I mean, every time AEW is on TV, who would I be tuning in to see if these guys hadn't come in?
I mean, if we go back into the feud between MJF and Darby Allin, MJF said the 4 pillars of AEW are MJF, Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, and Sammy Guevara. We'd probably be talking about them being in the main event scene right now if it wasn't for all like Danielson and Claudio and CM Punk.
Yep. Yeah. That is just my opinion, is that I think I would tune in more to AEW if there was wrestlers I didn't know about. Because I think that's what makes them charming. I think that's what makes them original, is that they're introducing us to new talent that WWE doesn't have or didn't get a hold of in time.
Alright, so since bloated roster was my point and her point, I technically have said my point as well, and she technically said her point, so Macy, go in with your number 4.
This is so bad. I actually think this is number 3.
Alright.
If you want me to be completely honest, but I don't. It's okay if you can't count.
Hey, whoa. You had 6, and you said your 6 and your 5.
No, I still have 4 left on my list. I've said 2.
I know, so this would be your number 4.
No, I've said 2. This would be my number 3.
Okay.
It's okay. We're going to take a brief commercial break so I can teach Eli how to count really quick.
Hold on. I understand why I'm saying 4 is because I'm looking at it as a top 5 thing and like number 6, number 5, number 4. That's where my brain is coming in. So, say your third point. There we go. We understand it now.
All right. My third point, my fourth point, whatever you want to call it, whoever's brain you associate with more, just go off that. I hope it's mine. But my next point did not turn up until MJF's promo a few weeks back. His promo a few weeks back at a press conference. You know what? I actually loved it now that I'm thinking about it because I hate Tony Khan with my whole entire life. So actually, MJF, I apologize that this is my point because I think your promo was good now that I'm thinking about it because of how much I hate Tony Khan. But I think the language is very cheap. I think it's cheap storytelling. Using foul, crude language. I think it's exciting when it's like heard every once in a while. But when it's heard literally all the time, like this is. I watch wrestling with my dad. That's a dad-daughter thing. We enjoy it. My dad does not care to hear like GD F-bombs on just cable television. And he's wanting to sit down and watch wholesome wrestling. Not like family-oriented wrestling, but be able to turn it on, have like my 9-year-old cousin there. And they're just dropping F-bombs. And like, that's cool for a gimmick. But every single sentence out of your mouth should not have that. That's my personal take. I think it's just cheap. But now that I hate Tony Khan literally with my whole entire body, thank you, MJF, for your promo a few weeks back. It was worth it.
I very much understand this because a majority of the time when I'm watching AEW, it's normally when I'm at work. So imagine like having to watch the show and then all of a sudden they're saying, well, you ain't shit. And I'm like, I'm at work right now. You can't say that. Can't say that.
Yep.
I understand you're at work, but
And that's what your job is, but that's not my job.
Yeah, there are just so many, there are a lot of times when I think that, especially MJF, where he just goes to that well so fast. And I'm just thinking to myself, look, I understand you're doing this as a character, and like, this is your character, but can you learn to use different language? Because you don't have to speak foul language. And look, I'm someone that curses like a sailor. I don't care if I hear it. But whenever I see someone just go to that well in their promos so many times, I'm just like, hey, can you think of something a little bit more creative to say? Because I think it's something where if you say it once every few promos, maybe then it'll be a little bit better. Like, oh, he said that word. But then, I don't know. Some people may be calling us sensitive for saying this. But like,
that's what I understand. I want to make a point that I understand where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a different place with that. And I'm also coming from it, and Eli, you might be able to confirm what I'm saying. Eli and I are both actors. I think we're both actors, and I also want to say we're both writers. And where I come with on the language side is, what is it doing to advance my story and advance my characters? Is it contributing to the environment? Is it contributing to the conflict? if it has truthfully no place in that, other than it just being there, what is its point?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like, if it's just to say it, then there's no point in saying it. And I feel like, and again, it's mainly at MJF. So MJF, come on. I know you're gonna say you're better than us, but I don't care. We know what we're talking about when it comes to writing and acting, because we have done that for years at this point, and we've taken.
MJF.
We've taken classes on writing and character advancement. Sure, you've taken classes on how to wrestle better, but whatever.
Congrats, dude. I have a BFA.
I also have a BFA.
Yeah, you do.
Look, we have degrees. What do you have, MJF? You got to be on the
Wrestling
Rosie
class?
O'Donnell show?
Ooh, your boss is Tony Khan? Big deal, bro.
Yeah, and you don't even like him. And that was Macy's big point of MJF, stop cussing, because damn. But anyway, now on to my next point, which is there's a backstage information problem.
Ooh.
I, as a fan of wrestling and a fan of AEW, should not have heard about Brawl Out. I should not have known about that. I should not have known about half of the stuff that has happened backstage. I shouldn't know about any of that, and yet here I am. We have discussed Brawl Out. We have discussed every single contract negotiation that has happened. I should not have even had a inkling that Malachi Black was leaving the company. But yet I do. But yet he wasn't leaving. It was all up in the air. There's so much backstage information at AEW that I learned over the past few months just because they're not good at keeping it in. I mean, am I wrong on this? I mean,
No. And I do have a question, because there is a part of me that kind of disagrees with it, because I can't decide, and I'm saying this, because I can't decide if I love knowing everything. If this is where I come in, where I'm like, is this just like the family business side of me, where I love to know what's going on because it makes me feel important, or if I'm just nosy, which that's probably the case. I think I'm just a nosy person in general. I love to be in people's business, especially if it's not mine. And then I'm also at the same time wondering how much of this is like for gimmick, like how much of this is just storytelling and them trying to create like this realistic kind of vibe. But I mean, we've seen this go on with even the whole William Regal switch. We knew everything about Regal's departure, but because there was so much, like, everybody knew about it, there were so many rumors stemming from AEW about what actually went down. We've seen this with CM Punk, and what happened with him. So I think either there's a backstage problem, or maybe that's what Tony Khan wants, because it gets people talking.
I don't know. I just know that when Brawl Out was happening, there was so much information, both true and false, from both sides of the aisle that was happening, that I was just thinking to myself, why do I know about this? How do I know about this? I should not know I should not know that Kenny Omega got bit on the arm by Ace Steel. I should not know that one minute detail. I should not know that a chair was thrown across the room. I should not know any of this. And yet I know all of this? What is AEW? Get your shit together when it comes to your backstage information problem. Tony, if you're listening to this, you're not, because this podcast is very small. But if you somehow come across this and you get to this point, work on who you tell your information to. Keep it to the chest if you have to. Don't give information out unless you're in a press conference and a reporter asks you the question. Like with the William...
This is how much I hate Tony Khan, because I look at this guy and I'm like, he's leaking everything. Like, he looks like a dude that would run his mouth for the sake of running his mouth.
Man, I'm so glad I have a picture of him on a microphone for the thumbnail.
This is actually, we're going to change this. Reasons why we hate Tony Khan. Number one.
Number one, telling everyone everything. But I mean, it's like, I don't mind knowing a little bit. Like when the CM Punk return was happening, I didn't mind knowing that.
To be in on that because it was special, and it was a big deal. But you knew, but you also didn't know, and so it kind of felt like Christmas morning, where like you're gonna get presents, but you don't know what you're gonna get or how you're gonna get them.
And you don't know the reaction that you're gonna have when you see it.
Yeah. But there's just some kind of accessibility that's like, there's too much accessibility to information that's happening in all of wrestling. I don't think it's exclusive to AEW. However, I do think with WWE, they pulled back the reins a little bit on that since Triple H's takeover. But AEW, I feel like every time I get on Twitter, something is always trending with some backstage drama. Like, can these guys in the locker room just not grow up?
Yeah, that's the annoying thing, and especially like, I feel like a lot of it stems from CM Punk, but I can't help but bring him up. But when CM Punk did that big thing of, oh, Adam Page, come on out, I will challenge for the title, I'll allow you that. Oh, you're not coming out? Well, that's because you're a coward and all that. And I remember thinking, what is happening? And then when I read that, oh, that wasn't actually supposed to happen, I'm like, why do I know that this is not supposed to happen? I shouldn't know this stuff.
I ultimately just think that, and this is where I keep wondering if it's just how they storytell in AEW, but literally every time I get on Twitter, there's something going on, and so I just feel like they want us to know. They want us to know things that we're not supposed to know. And I feel like they're doing that for the sake of storytelling.
Gotcha. And I don't know, especially with everything that's happening right now with the Death Triangle versus the Elite, and the Elite making every single reference in the world to brawl out. And I'm just like, is CM Punk coming back? Because you can't do that without a payoff.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just looking like a dick.
And I think that's what's happening. That's personally what I think is happening. I don't know, Eli, I don't know if he's coming back. I just don't see it happening.
I mean, I was in the camp that thought that he shouldn't come back, but seeing how the Elite's acting, I'm like, you can't do that if he's not coming back.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I just don't see him making a comeback.
Yeah, neither do I. But anyway, moving on to Macy's next point, your fourth point?
Yes, it should be my fourth point. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
Creative mistakes. I think this might be my top one. So maybe I should wait till the end for this one.
All right, if you want to wait, everyone, there's a preview. There's a preview. I'm going to push that one back because I think it could stem into conversations for a future episode. Yeah.
And it might also be one of your points, Eli.
Well, I think it could match my top point, maybe.
What if our top point is the same?
Who knows? I don't. So if you're... Okay, since you're saving that point, what is your next point?
Yeah. And this will be a good segue from what we were just talking about. I think bringing CM Punk in was exciting, but I think they brought him in only for it to be exciting that CM Punk was back, and then they didn't know what in the world to do with him. Mm-hmm. The Darby Allin thing, I think that was exciting. My personal opinion, I think they took the wrong approach with bringing CM Punk back. I don't know if he should have come back and been in the ring, personally.
I can very much see your point and also agree with the point. I feel like the only great thing CM Punk did, like the only two great storylines CM Punk was a part of was when he wrestled Eddie Kingston and when he wrestled MJF. In my opinion, those were his best stories.
Interesting. See, I was very interested in the whole Darby Allin thing. I think that CM Punk could find a place there as a promoter, a manager, or a mentor. I don't know if he necessarily needs to be in the ring with these guys. I'm not interested at this moment in seeing him in the ring with those guys. Nothing about it really excites me. And so I think a creative mistake they made was bringing him in and not doing... I don't even want to say doing right by him, but knowing exactly what they wanted. Or bringing him in without a clear direction.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Because because I believe he debuted on the very first Rampage.
He did.
So
yes.
So yeah, it was to give Rampage a boost, which, cool, now Rampage is basically a nothing show.
Right. Their ratings suck. Like,
yeah.
It's... And Rampage, following CM Punk coming in, Rampage, their ratings were incredible. I was tuning into Rampage every week, all the time. I was watching AEW constantly because it was exciting. But I think after that, they just lost direction of where they really wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they had one to begin with. I don't know where they're going, where they're heading. But I think that's what they've lost touch of, is direction and storytelling.
Yeah, and that sort of goes back to the point that you hinted at, was lack of direction and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and...
Yep.
And I think, I'm going to go to my point, one of my points is, like, the reason for the lack of storytelling, like vision and storytelling, is because they let Cody Rhodes leave.
Eli, that was my first point. That's my big point.
See, right there. Look, in my opinion, it comes back to the lack of story. It comes back to Cody Rhodes, because Cody Rhodes, no matter if you liked what he did with his own little faction of stuff with his own people or not, he knew how to tell a story, and he was telling a story.
And also, he was the credibility that AEW needed. And here's the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into this is my last point, and then you can have the floor, whatever. But Cody Rhodes jumping ship was the worst creative mistake they could have made ever. He was the credibility they needed. Okay, so here's the thing. Is that Cody Rhodes jumping ship was the worst thing they could have ever done creatively, because he was the credibility to the company. Like, if I associated AEW with Cody Rhodes. Got it? I thought of AEW, I thought of Cody Rhodes. They were synonymous for me at that point. And that's exciting that Bryan Danielson came in, CM Punk came in, Samoa Joe's now in. You have people that were coming like MJF. You have, there's still, for me, no true credibility at AEW since Cody Rhodes left. And my thinking is that he is, I don't know. I contributed him to the royal family in WWE, you know? In my head, there's a reason he left and made the switch. There is something going on in that company that is fundamentally wrong, foundationally wrong, that made him jump ship.
Well, from what I've heard, and again, backstage information problem, it was because, like, he was trying to do a little bit more of the creative stuff as well as doing the wrestling, which, Cody Rhodes, great creative mind. I love the feud. His story with his brother at the very first, like, Double or Nothing, one of the greatest freaking stories in that year. And then, sort of, once Tony Khan started taking more of the reins, that's when you started to see the shift. And that's when you started to see, Cody's not really doing what he really wants to do and what he should be doing, so Cody's out the door. And apparently Cody Rhodes is still good friends with the Elite, he's still good friends with Adam Page, Jon Moxley, cool, whatever. But if you're not, quote-unquote, good friends anymore with the person in charge of the company, that really hurts everything.
Absolutely. And I think this is the overarching... Eli, I think we found our overarching part of the creative mistake of AEW is that we hate Tony Khan. We hate Tony Khan. He is the problem. And I think AEW needs to figure that out. I think they need to figure something out.
And Tony Khan is the problem for my final 2 points. Which are, is all your points gone?
Those are all my points.
Alright, so here are my final 2 points. You hinted at this earlier. I think that Tony Khan has a shiny new toy problem. Which, again,
I'm so with you with that.
CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, Keith Lee, Swerve Strickland, literally every single time he hires someone new, they become the new hot...
best friend.
Yeah, they're the new hot stuff, and then everyone after that starts going away. But then after the shiny new toy starts not becoming shiny new anymore, he gets another new shiny toy. Remember when Bandito came in for that one show, and then suddenly he got hired on the spot, shiny new toy. It is so frustrating when I see so many... The Acclaimed, for the longest time in early this year, were all the way in the back, being pushed back for Swerve in Our Glory. It wasn't until, like, they started getting over themselves by the fans that Tony Khan was like, alright, fine, I'll make them tag team champions.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Can I interject with a point here?
Go for it.
This is a question to Tony Khan. When will you start allowing women to be your shiny new toy? When will you start developing the women's division? When will you start making it something worthwhile and worth watching? I don't want to say that it's not worth watching, because I think was it like AEW After Dark? There was a Britt Baker, a fantastic performer, had a great match, and it was interesting. It was very ECW like. I think that's exciting, but sorry, Eli, I'm gonna have to pause. My dogs are acting up.
It's okay.
Okay, back on my point. I am so frustrated as a woman watching this that it's a bunch of men at a table talking. It's one of the most frustrating things, and this is a reason why I stopped watching AEW. Probably a big reason is because I've loved watching the development of WWE's women's division and watching those be true WrestleMania like main event moments all the time. And AEW women's division cannot compete, and it's not because the women can't compete, it's because Tony Khan won't allow them to compete.
Do you want to know what my biggest thing was? My final point?
Nuh-uh. Don't say I took it.
Mishandling the women's division. Okay, if I were to ask you right now, who's Tony Khan's number one women's wrestler is, who would you say?
Well, I love Britt Baker, but Toni Storm's good too, but I'm a Britt Baker stan. And she's also all I hear about. Like, if I think about AEW, I'm thinking Britt Baker for women's division.
Exactly. But who's the number two? If you honestly had to try to think of a number two. And it doesn't matter that Jade Cargill is currently like on an undefeated streak with the TBS title. When you look at the entire women's roster, Britt Baker feels the biggest because of how AEW has really positioned her. But also, when you look at you cannot tell me that, man, going back to that women's championship match at Full Gear, it was a great match, but you cannot tell me that match was just, like, the story behind it was not great. Because it was not great. It was just Toni Storm saying, hey, we used to be roommates, and now Jamie Hayter's friends with other people, and I don't like that. Really? That's the story you're gonna go with? That's the story.
It's crap. There's nothing compelling about it. And so when the story is not compelling, the match is not compelling. Even if those women are putting on the fight of their life, they are going out there, and I will say they are delivering. They are delivering in the ring. But when they don't have the story to back up what they're doing, it doesn't count for anything. And it's not their fault. That's my problem. It is not the fault of those women. Should not rest on those women for uncompelling storylines. I think everything that we've discussed goes back to Tony Khan and his inability to manage this business in a way that is good, but also can fairly compete with WWE. I don't even think it's to the maturity or to the level to where it could be a fair competitor.
100%. And, like, when I look at his women's roster, it is honestly one of the best women's roster. I remember when Hikaru Shida was the women's champion. I legitimately thought, okay, this is going to be their best women's champion, and they need to give her every single great story they can. They barely gave her any story. Her biggest story was against Serena Deeb. But then after that, outside of the women's championship division, name me one women's story. Name me one.
I can't. I literally can't. Because they're not there. There's nothing memorable about it. And that's kind of going back to my first point, is that I'm so frustrated when I look and I see like these 2 tag team championship titles, these 4 singles for men. And you see 2 women's titles where there's no substance to what they're doing. There's no substance. There's nothing that makes me excited for those titles. And we'll be talking about WWE hopefully in the next few weeks. but there's some compelling storytelling going on there. There's reasons for me to care even about women's tag team.
Exactly.
There was a time where I did not care about women's tag team. And I hate to say that. As a woman, I hate to say that there was a time when I didn't care, but I care. When Damage Control and Bianca Belair and Asuka, Becky Lynch, like when these women are on my screen, I am compelled to watch them because there are people who are buying in and taking the time to write compelling stories for these women.
Like, I look at the women's roster on WWE and I look at the women's roster on AEW. If somehow AEW and WWE were to say, hey, let's put on an AEW versus WWE show. If I saw Becky Lynch versus Britt Baker, my first thought is, oh, Becky Lynch is going to win. Because I cannot believe that anyone on the AEW women's roster can beat anyone on the WWE women's roster. Because
I agree.
That is how strong the women on the WWE are booked, whereas the women on AEW are not booked as strong. Like, they just had a Ring of Honor show this past Saturday, and it was Mercedes Martinez versus Athena. And all I was thinking was, I have not seen Mercedes Martinez on any of my TV screens, whereas Athena has actually appeared on TV. So when they had their women's championship match, I was like, oh, I can believe Athena's gonna win. If Mercedes Martinez wins, I'm gonna be shocked.
Yeah. And so when you said that, is obviously my whole list is compiled because I haven't watched AEW in 6 months. So you said those two names. My first thought were, who are they?
Exactly.
That should not be how it should be. AEW is not catering to a crowd that is outside of wrestling entertainment, and I think WWE is right now. They have names that are known outside the sphere of wrestling, and AEW has not made any strides to do that.
I would say, like, honestly, the biggest name AEW has right now is Saraya. But the only reason why is because you look at her and you say, oh, that's Paige.
Right.
Like, Paige, it's like, that's the
reason you know her.
It's like, that's the woman wrestler that had a movie made about her. Like,
yep.
That's it.
That's
so
it.
it's frustrating because it all comes down to they have such a vast roster that they never utilize. I don't want to say they should trim the fat. I don't want to, because I don't want to see people lose their jobs. I just think they need to start looking at, going back to bloated roster, I'm sorry, my brain has just thought of someone. When was the last time you saw Miro on your TV?
Go ahead and say it. Yep.
Miro, one of the biggest names you have, and he's nowhere. You're telling me you cannot find a way to bring Miro back and have him feud with Samoa Joe right now?
Yep. I think you're so right on with the whole shiny new toy concept. Like, I can't even begin to explain how right on you are. Because that's what you see in AEW, especially when they were bringing people in like crazy. It would be like, so-and-so is all elite. It would be like the Shadow. And that's all it was. It was like every single day, it was someone is all elite. But the excitement would last for a day. And that would be it. And what are you, like, how can you expect to build a reputable roster when the excitement around and the buzz around those people only lasts for a day?
Legitimately, this entire year, the biggest name I want to say, and it's the only name that made me actually care about AEW, was Jon Moxley. He was the only person that made me go, hey, I care about AEW, because he's actually doing stuff that makes me care. Whenever someone got injured, or whenever they needed someone, they went straight to Jon Moxley. In my opinion, Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, is the face of AEW.
Yep, I agree. And he's the one connector that can really get WWE people to watch AEW. I'm not even convinced sometimes with Bryan Danielson. I'm not even sometimes convinced with Samoa Joe, just because of bad storytelling. Yeah, I think the reason Jon Moxley is great is because he just brings. He's a good connector to WWE. People love Dean Ambrose, and it was sad to watch him go. But I think it's been so thrilling to watch him become who he is as Jon Moxley. And that's a compelling reason that was a compelling reason for me to watch and keep up with AEW, is just to see Jon Moxley's success. But I don't think that's happened with Bryan Danielson or Samoa Joe because of just bad storytelling, bad marketing, not really knowing what to do with these names that they spend a lot of money to bring in.
Honestly, when it comes to everyone on the AEW roster, if you were to do a WWE versus AEW, if you did Roman Reigns versus Jon Moxley, I would legitimately say to you, I think Jon Moxley can win because he's proven he can, like, anyone can beat him bloody and he can come back.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And even if he didn't win, I think it would still be a good match. Like, it would be one where they could actually, like, they could handle each other in the ring. But I that obviously goes back to Jon Moxley with his training in WWE. He performs to that level. I think AEW has a different expectation for their wrestlers, for their performance in the ring. And I think that's why it's not good most of the time, because I think they're just being held to a different standard.
Yeah, I honestly think it all comes back to Tony Khan not holding.
Hate Tony Khan.
I don't. Now, I'm not gonna go as far as to say I hate Tony Khan. I think it's.
I will.
Okay, I think it's just Tony Khan has different expectations and just doesn't. I hate to say this, but
I don't think he can run a business. I don't think he can run a wrestling business, a wrestling franchise.
I mean, he's running the Jacksonville Jaguars, so we see what's happening there. But but I think for me personally, it's just Tony Khan, when he decided to create a wrestling company, I was like, cool, you can be like the money and you should hire someone else to do the storytelling. Sort of like how back when WCW was around, Ted Turner owned the company, but he had people like Eric Bischoff, and maybe not a great example, but Dusty Rhodes and like...
You know what? No, we'll give Bischoff his credit because he did have good storytelling for a while. He just got ahead of himself.
Yeah, he did the NWO. I'll give him that. But it's very much have, like, be the person at the head of the table, for lack of a better term, but have other people, like, actually book your shows for you. And I think that's what Tony Khan doesn't realize. He's not a booker. He didn't grow up learning how to be a booker. And I think that's the one thing he ultimately needs.
Yeah, I think he comes off as some guy who has made who plays like WWE or wrestling on his PlayStation and made a fantasy team. And that's what he's doing right now. And he's running out of players to add to his team.
I mean, I do too, but yet I also try to make compelling stories with my storytelling.
Yeah, but the difference is that you are a storyteller.
That is true.
Tony Khan isn't. And he keeps proving it every week. Dude, hire someone else.
I mean,
just run a company. That's all we're asking.
It all the way comes back to... Cody Rhodes leaving. Cody Rhodes, you're the reason why AEW is going down the drain now.
But don't go back. Don't go back. Listen, when he came back, I know we're not talking about WWE back yet, but when he came back and just the whole Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes thing was incredible. I think I forgot one of my points.
Okay.
Maybe I did. I did forget one of them. And I'll just tie it in quickly because it's not a big one. But one of the first matches I saw on AEW was a Britt Baker one. And there was blood. Like I said, it was very ECW.
Was it the Lights Out match with Thunder Rosa?
Yes, it was. Absolutely, it was. And it was so good. And I was like, oh, I have to keep watching. And then they kept doing blood and guts and ECW-esque things. That's not exciting. What was exciting for me is Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins' match at... why am I blanking right now?
Hell in a Cell.
Yes, it was Hell in a Cell. And you know what it looks like. He removes his jacket and you see the bruise.
It's perfect storytelling because
amazing storytelling.
You even see Seth like going for that.
Yes, he's laughing and he's laughing at the bruise initially, and then every target in the match is at that bruise.
And he's trying to get into Cody's head by dressing up as Dusty.
Yes, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I could ask for better storytelling. But that's the kind of stuff that AEW is missing the mark on. They're doing cheap tactics over and over again, expecting to get a reaction, and they're getting no reaction because it's what is expected out of them now.
Yeah, so Tony, everyone at AEW, these are all constructive criticisms. We want you to do better. We want you to succeed, because if you succeed, then the entire wrestling industry succeeds, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want it to be said, even though I hate Tony Khan, I think AEW is. I was excited for AEW because I love the WCW, WWF at the time. I loved that feud, and then it changed over into obviously WWE. But I loved the feud. I loved the competition. I think that's what made wrestling prominent in the 90s, is because there was competition. People were talking about it. There was buzz, and AEW had that for a little bit, but then something happened along the way that made wrestling lose that buzz, and it's because of AEW's poor creative mistakes, and another plug for a future episode, WWE's poor creative mistakes.
100%. And we just got some crazy wrestling news. I don't know if it's breaking or anything, but Macy says it's very important.
It's not breaking, but Twitter was hot this morning with Vince McMahon. Why was Vince McMahon trending on Twitter again? We thought he retired. We thought he was done with the business. But there's apparently been more allegations against him from the 80s, late 80s, early 90s regarding more sexual harassment.
I thought he was trending because he said he was going to try to make a comeback.
Oh, well, yeah. So in the same verse where... This is the brilliance of Vince McMahon. It's not actually brilliance. Don't take that seriously.
No.
This is laughable. In the same verse of him saying, "I did not have sex with that woman," you're welcome for that Bill Clinton reference. He also apparently said that he wanted to come back. And he was making plans to come back to the WWE. Vince, if you're ever listening to this, please don't. Please don't come back.
Look, Vince, if you haven't noticed, your company has been flourishing with you not here. And so...
Thriving.
Yes. Literally, people are talking about your company in more in a positive light than they are of AEW. So you should be watching.
This is why Eli and I are having issues with a future episode of Creative Mistakes in 2022 since Triple H has taken over, because it's been amazing.
Yeah, I've only been able to think of 4.
I think that's what I'm sitting at right now, too. I'm sitting at 2 right now.
See, my 4, some of them are very nitpicky in personal preferences things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, WWE has been doing great. Vince McMahon coming back would be horrible. In AEW, you need to be watching WWE more and maybe taking some notes on how to do storytelling. Especially...
Or how to get rid of the boss and bring someone new in.
I don't want to laugh at this.
Tony Khan, it was for you. I hate you.
Tony Khan, we want Triple H in charge of AEW.
He's going to pull a Shane McMahon and buy it.
No, that's the twist. Vince McMahon buys AEW.
That would lose my mind.
It's me, Hunter. It's always been me.
Can you imagine? Imagine a world where Vince McMahon, it's AEW. They're like rolling him out in a wheelchair down the ramp.
Hi there. I'm in charge of AEW now. And Tony Khan, you're
fired. Oh my gosh. Anyways, that's all my wrestling news for today. I thought that was a thing to bring up in light of...
Yeah, that is something major. I really hope Vince McMahon doesn't come back. But yes, those were our top mistakes for AEW. That's what they've been doing that we think is wrong. What are your thoughts in the comments down below? Do you agree with us? Do you very much disagree with us? Whatever your thoughts, post them in the comments down below. Also, Macy, since you're trying to get into the foyer of podcasting, tell everybody where they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, Instagram is Macy Early, and that's MacyEarley. But Twitter is where I have more fun. And you will find me on Twitter at MazeHym. Maze Him. Don't ask me why I chose that name. That's just what it is. But find me there. I'll be posting content soon.
I've never actually once asked about her Twitter handle. Not gonna ask about it now. And you can follow me everywhere on social media at MrEliMac. Again, if you disagree with us, let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you like what we're talking about, hit the like button and hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a wrestling podcast video comes your way. Also, hit the subscribe button. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the channel. Until next time, I have been Mr. Eli Mack. That has been Macy Early, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.